there. So the fire continues to burn to the north and to the east and to the southeast, and there is a fierce fire fight of elements of both Ventura County Fire, Forestry, LA County Fire, and City Fire work to try and stop this fire as it continues to move eastbound towards the 405 freeway. I'll keep watching and let you know about any further developments. Till then, back to you guys.
Yeah, Mark, real concern as it creeps towards the 405. I think so many of us thought that this would be a weekend where firefighters really got a handle on things. As it creeps toward there, there's thousands of more people impacted, and this just keeps going. We now want to get to the Eaton fire, which is 15% contained, but still 14,000 acres and just so much devastation.
And that's where Massa Saidi is. She's in Hastings Ranch. And, you know, we've been following the west side of Los Angeles and this fire, but there is so much devastation there at the Eaton fire as well. Massa.
Yeah, Rutabaga, Jamie, so much devastation. There was a mandatory evacuation order in place, but now the National Guard is letting people come back home if they have valid ID. They also let the media through, and unfortunately, this is what people are seeing when they return home. As you guys have said it, as we've been saying it for days, utter and complete devastation. Now, our viewers, you're going to know this is a community that is very well known for their annual holiday Christmas display, bumper to bumper traffic, so many people coming here to check out the Christmas lights, and this is the scene that they're seeing now. I want to introduce you to one very lucky person whose home is still standing, one of the very few in this cul-de-sac, Manny Mendoza. Thank you so much. I know you were house sitting for your daughter.
Correct.
And you did one thing that you think is the reason that your home is still standing. What did you do?
I turned on our fire prevention rooftop sprinklers.
And he turned them on for us right now so Dana can show it to you. And you believe that this is actually the reason that your house is still standing.
We had turned it on. I turned it on earlier in the day, and so when the heat and flames came up, it created like a vapor to surround the area, along with the water, keeping any flames or embers from igniting the house.
And you actually watched the flames get closer to your house?
Yes, I watched them from the back deck as they came over each ridge, and as soon as it got to the ridge behind the house, I left.
And now your insurance is okay. Obviously, you don't have any damage inside the house. But when you look at your neighbors, I know you're in touch with some of them. What are they telling you about their insurance? I know some people had received cancellations. You were telling me just.
Some of them had received cancellations. Others were thank God we have insurance. So I know that they were covered. A lot of the neighbors up here are pretty resourceful, and they're diehards, so they'll fight with the insurance company, they'll fight with anybody they have to make sure they're covered.
Well, Manny, thank you so much for talking with us. We're so glad that your daughter's home is okay, and wish you and all of your neighbors the very best. We are also in touch with the PIO from the city of Pasadena, and she's telling me about some shady stuff that they're seeing. I heard in that press conference state officials talking about some scams that are popping up, people pretending to be contractors, asking for a down payment, people pretending to work for the government, asking for a down payment, and that is something that you always want to be aware of. She told me that people are also pretending to be private security hired for homes, and they're finding out that's not true. And Rutabaga, Jamie, they've actually even arrested some people over this, apparently. She is going to come out and talk with me shortly, and we'll bring that to you as well. Just some really important information that we want to make sure we get out to people as they're starting to come back to, scenes like this.
Really, the duality of what's happening, I think, today is that we are still in a firefight when it comes to the Palisades fires. It's moved over toward Brentwood, and then you have these concerning issues in places that have already burned to the ground, that people are trying to take advantage of people, which is just disgusting.
It's really horrible. So law enforcement and a lot of public officials on that, watching gouging, watching insurance scams and those kinds of things. Now we want to go back over to the west side of LA, just south of Brentwood, and that's where we find Laura Hafley. What are you seeing there now as we talk about this active firefight?
I'll tap you when
Yeah, we're still standing here on the top of this canyon, and the fire behavior has been extraordinary, and that's for a couple reasons. First of all, this wind continuing to change directions here in the middle of the day. It's pushing this fire right now up this canyon, but just moments ago, it was racing down the canyon. You can see some of those burned areas, the fire now moving away from them. But that's just one example of how seriously fast this fire can move. Now take a look at this red retardant you're seeing on the ground. That is because here we go, planes like this. Watch that retardant drop out of this plane. That is crucial to this firefight. It is helping the crews on the ground. It is keeping these flames from spreading into areas that have not been burned yet. That is making all the difference. And man, these pilots are talented, getting incredibly close to these ridges, to the canyon, in order to help this firefight and help homeowners, making sure that they can protect their property. Now, I want to talk about why these aerial assets are so important. This canyon that we're looking at is really tough terrain, incredibly steep, tough to access, which means those hand crews that they typically have on the ground can't really get up there. So firefighters relying on helicopters, fixed wing planes, DC-10s, Firehawks to drop water and drop red retardant. But Mother Nature plays a big factor. She's going to make some decisions with how this fire moves. And like I said, it was just moments ago that the fire was racing towards these homes at the bottom of the canyon. Now it's pushing up the canyon. Now we're standing with a PIO for CAL FIRE. Devin, if you'll chat with us for a second here while we continue to look at this canyon, talk about this firefight. What are some of the struggles we're seeing?
You know, wind and terrain are always a big struggle for us. We're getting lucky, at least in this drainage. It is going up slope. It's keeping the smoke out of the way for our air resources to come in. We've got about 10 to 12 helicopters in this area, multiple tankers. You'll see probably within the next 2 minutes, once the DC-10 that just dropped is clear, that all of those air resources will start coming in and doing drops behind the DC-10.
And it makes a huge difference.
Oh, a huge difference. You know, it's they're able to cover so much ground so quick and access things that would take, you know, potentially days for us to get to, and they're a crucial element to the firefight.
And is this plane, that's a spotter plane, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
What are they doing? They're helping these retardant drops, correct?
Yeah, they coordinate with the larger aircraft to do retardant drops. They will do multiple circles and essentially help guide the larger tankers into the areas. And as you saw in the video earlier, they actually do a long white puff of smoke, and that's kind of telling that tanker where exactly they'd like the drop to be.
And of course, all of this to protect lives and protect property. We spoke to a homeowner who is on pins and needles, hoping that her house stays safe throughout this incredibly aggressive fire. Take a listen.
They worked all day, and obviously through the night, the fire came up and it stopped there, and they did hold the line. I don't know what's happening now, why this is all of a sudden spreading. This area is so vulnerable. Crestwood Hills is so vulnerable, and if this will just take it right into Brentwood if they don't stop it here. They need to stop it here.
You can hear the desperation in her voice, hoping that firefighters can do what they can to stop these flames from moving as quickly as they are. And of course, that's exactly what crews are doing. Even in areas like where I am now, crews are pre-positioned to make sure that this fire doesn't spread. I just want to turn you around. We spoke about the helicopters. You saw the plane earlier. These helicopters dropping water again. This is making a huge difference, and they're incredibly accurate. This water, this retardant, going exactly where they need it to go. So this is just one incredible example of how many resources are being used to protect neighbors like the woman you just heard. Of course, we'll be up here updating you as much as we can. For now, we'll send it back to you.
You know, it is amazing the work that they do, and we're so grateful for them and grateful they can get up right now. We see another water drop happening there over those homes where retardant has already fallen. It's striking to me that as we're watching all of these water dumps and fire retardant being put down, we're still seeing flames and we're still seeing movement within that vegetation.
Absolutely, and you can see the sky is darkened there from the smoke, but it is such a relief to see aircraft in the sky helping in this firefight. I want to go now to Kirsten Mitchell. She is on the 4100 Meadow Ridge Place block in Encino, and you know, a lot of people last night thought that they were kind of in the clear in this area, and then the wind shifted, and all of a sudden more evacuation orders, thousands more people affected.
Yeah, absolutely. People packed up last night. Then this morning felt a little bit better. Then, things really changed today. And now the wind, we've been here, 15, 20 minutes, and the wind has picked up too. But I want to show you what we're seeing behind us here. This, believe, is the ridge for Mandeville Canyon. We've been seeing just billowing smoke come from the top. It's not clear exactly if it has reached the top. That's obviously a better vantage from the air. But we have seen so many aircraft going back and forth, and this is really close to the Encino Reservoir. So that is great news for firefighters, having that water access so close. But you can just see just the billows of smoke. At times there's been flare-ups. It's gotten really dark, and it's really just an active scene. And tons of aircrafts going back and forth. Now, where I'm standing right now, this is a mandatory evacuation order zone, but just a few blocks over, they're still under a warning. And I want to introduce you to Nikolai. You live in that evacuation warning zone. You told me you packed up last night. You're still packed, ready to go, but you have not left.
No, we still packed. It was pretty crazy. We got notification yesterday in the afternoon to be ready, so we just gathered all belongings we thought we need and packed the car and got ready, and still waiting. What's going on. It's not over yet for us.
And you're telling me, this speaks to just the magnitude of this. You're actually hosting people that had to evacuate from this very same fire already, and now you're in that same position potentially.
Yeah, correct. We had friends staying with us who didn't have water and power, who lived on top of the hill, and who stayed with us for 2 days. And, we hosted them. And then yesterday, turned around, we were in the position of needing a place to stay eventually. For now, we're safe, and, we're in good spirits, and hopefully everything will be fine here on this end in Encino.
What's it been like standing here and watching all of that firefighting efforts here?
Yeah, it's just so sad to see this. And the magnitude of fire and just the pure scale is just incredible. We live here since 2000, and we never experienced anything like that. So, it's horrible. It's really horrible to witness.
Do you feel like a lot of your neighbors in Encino have made the choice to leave?
Not all of them, because a lot of people, decide to stay and just wait to the last minute. I myself probably would have just waited and maybe hose down the roof and some plants just to make sure, no embers would go towards the house. So it's a mixed thing. Some people just left. I know a couple of people left to other friends around town, or even out of the city. It's a 50-50, I would say, at this point.
Yeah. But you are packed and ready to go should you have to, right?
Yes, we are packed and ready. That's right.
And hopefully you don't have to make that journey out of here. I imagine it must be just really unnerving watching this creep so close to your home.
Yeah, it is. It is. Hopefully everything, hopefully we'll be fine, but I still feel for the people in Brentwood, because it seems it's still, going on there. So, but yeah, we're lucky for now.
Yeah, and we say that as the wind is starting to pick up too. Thank you so much, Nikolai.
Absolutely.
I hope everything goes well for you and your loved ones.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And really, those are the stories we're hearing here in this neighborhood. Is just kind of that waiting game, and having such a vantage of what potentially could be coming your way is just so terrifying for people. And at the same time, people can't look away. They need to know, and they're packing, they're preparing, and that's really what officials want people to do, is just be ready, because as we've seen, a lot of things can change very quickly.
Absolutely. We hope people take this seriously. Yeah. You never want the roads to be clogged as everyone tries to evacuate all at the same time. So definitely a reminder to get ready, get your things in order as you see those smoke plumes over the mountainside there.
The one thing that is striking to me is that I think all Angelinos right now feel, as he is, full of anxiety, just sitting, watching. You see the plumes of smoke. It doesn't matter where you live in Los Angeles, you are seeing as these fires continue to just engulf hillsides, and now you really have to be careful if you're out there. Stay off the roadways. The 405, many on and off ramps are closed, so that firefighters can try to make sure that they keep this fire contained. on the west side of the 405. You look at places like Encino, I think about the rest of the valley where you are in Sherman Oaks and other places in the valley, that it's just, everyone is just so unnerved right now.
Absolutely. And a lot of people not expecting this last night, of course. No one really expected it. I think firefighters, they're always ready. The fire season now in California is year round.
Yes.
So they're ready for a fire. They're maybe not ready for 6 fires or 4 fires simultaneously.
Well, that's what I was looking at. We had the Eaton fire, the Kenneth fire, the Hearst fire, the Lydia fire, the Archer fire, the Palisades fire. The Palisades fire, we should say too, people waking up this morning, getting going, seeing this is part of the Palisades fire. This isn't a new fire. This is one that has spread, and that's the concern, with having so many of these fires in the area, and resources just spread so thin throughout Los Angeles.
Absolutely. We want to get to Mark Liu now, because we really do get a different perspective when we see from the air what these flames look like, what these fires look like, and unfortunately, we just saw a house burn just about an hour ago, Mark.
This is unfortunately, this is an awful perspective that I'm about to show you. If we can go to SkyCal, this is that home that we were talking about at Mandeville Canyon Road, that beautiful 50-year-old wood and stone home that was right by Mandeville Canyon and Merrimack Road. It is now leveled. There is absolutely nothing left except for that chimney there. This home, even though there was 2 direct water drops on it, over 2,000 gallons directly, it is simply not enough to save a property that is completely engulfed in flames. And unfortunately, this is one part of Mandeville Canyon where there's only one way in and one way out. There was really no hand crews available, but I don't think they would have been able to do anything about it anyway. It was a total loss before those water drops even happened. And you can even see this was a home that had a pool, a custom pool with a deck built right there. And you can see that that pool is really one of the only features that remains of this home that I said had been built back in 1977 and sits on an overlook of Mandeville Canyon Road right at Merrimack. Now, there is still a very concerted effort to stop this fire as it approaches other homes like this one. There are at least 6 or 7 water-dropping helicopters and a fleet of fixed-wing aircraft, including some very large DC-10 tankers that can drop 9,000 gallons of water or retardant at a time. And for perspective, the LA County and Ventura County Firehawks, those are Sikorsky UH-60 Blackhawks that have been converted. We've seen Blackhawks used in the United States Armed Forces for many years. These are the same aircraft that have been converted for water dropping or retardant dropping operations. And each one of those helicopters drops 1,000 gallons. The DC-10, the 2 DC-10s that are operating in this vicinity now are dropping 9,000 gallons at a time. So they do the work of 9 water-dropping helicopters. And when that DC-10 comes into this area, something very unique happens. Every single other aircraft, including those fire helicopters, have to get out of the way, because this DC-10, a very large-bodied aircraft, travels at about 150 miles an hour at 200 to 300 feet off the ground. This is not a plane that was built for maneuverability. DC-10s were initially built as passenger planes for continental travel across the United States. They've been in service for many, many years. They're not designed for low altitude drops, but they have been retrofitted to do that with pilots specifically trained to do that safely. And I actually have an example on the radar of what happens when one of the 2 DC-10s in this area come into the airspace. If you come out to my screen, I'm going to show you. This is a time lapse from just about 30 minutes ago, and I'm going to move it forward here, and you're going to see, you see all these orange aircraft here? These are the water-dropping helicopters, and they're sort of flying around in this area right here. Excuse me, I didn't, all right here. And then suddenly, they all end up going right into the Encino Reservoir, and you see them all circling up there. They're going in a circle right here. They're not doing any water drops. They're just going in a circle over and over. That's because that DC-10, I'm going to pause it, right here is currently doing its drop. All of the other aircraft have to move out of the way while that DC-10 is coming in, because it's just not very maneuverable. So all of those aircraft, they just sat right here and did a circle around the Encino Reservoir. And then as that DC-10 left the area to go back to San Bernardino International Airport, they were able to resume their firefighting operations. Now coming back out live to SkyCal, if we can get some SkyCal video, you can see here, this is Mandeville Canyon in the lower left-hand part of of your screen, there are some long purple lines there of that Phos-Chek in that neighborhood. That is an extremely powerful fire retardant. Fire just can't burn through that area. On the right-hand side of your screen, you're seeing video from our reporters that are seeing this nearly continuous aerial assault. There, right there, you see that's a Coulson Aviation CH-47 Chinook, 3,000 gallons of water. It's based right at Van Nuys Airport. Almost anyone that lives in the San Fernando Valley has seen one of those things fly over their home at some point. And then you can see another drop here from the southern part of the flank in Mandeville Canyon, where we have reporters on that hillside looking at these water drops over and over. I'll tell you, Jamie and Rudabeh, this is how they're going to save these homes.
And I just think of how desperate people feel in these situations. It is so great to see so many aircraft up and see so many of these water drops. But look at the left-hand side of your screen. There's still fire popping up in all this vegetation. It's almost like a game of whack-a-mole for these firefighters.
Absolutely, and that image of what's left of that home, which is hardly anything, if we can go back to that. Mark, that strikes me. We watched that home go up in flames. We saw how beautiful it was just about an hour ago. And it's so ironic when you see these images of a pool that almost looks like a lake in the middle of a burned out, just rubble, anything that's left. And same with the Malibu area. You see this Pacific Ocean, this huge body of water, and then you see the flames just ravage all the homes that were just right there on the water. So it's really a juxtaposition. We also saw that image of the American flag still standing and waving in the wind amid all of the burned out skeletons of rubble of the structures that used to be there.
It's striking to me, if people are just tuning in, this is part of the Palisades fire. This isn't something that a new fire popped up. I think we've all been so on edge that there would be new fires that did start after the last few days, where we saw the Kenneth fire. We saw those fires pop up in the Hollywood Hills. This is still part of the Palisades fire that has been burning now since Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning. So we're going into day 5 of the firefight just on this one specific fire. And I can tell you from being out at the Palisades fire, this was of real concern to firefighters, that the winds would potentially turn. We'd get those onshore winds instead of the Santa Anas, and it would whip the fires back around. You can see that is now what's happened, and why we're in this firefight now overnight and into this morning in the Brentwood into Encino area, where evacuations have taken place. You can see more of those water drops that we saw earlier. Just the intensity of the water drops is something else. It's something to be seen. But I thought over the weekend we would get a little bit of a lull, not as windy, but just the direction of the winds has played a role now. And firefighters did tell me the other day as well that they were very concerned if it did make this shift, it would go from a wind-driven fire to now a fuel-driven fire. And you do see that that's exactly what's happening here. You have so much vegetation on these hillsides, and it is so dry. I think people understand the Santa Ana winds if you've lived here a long time, but if you're someone that maybe doesn't understand it completely, when they come in, it dries everything out. You're getting that very dry air from the desert, to the east of us pushing in. And so what was already dry is even drier, and the fuel is just ready to burn.
Yeah, and as we watch this aerial assault here, people were not ready on the east side of the 405, and they thought they got a break. And we should mention that there is no rain coming up in the forecast, and the winds are expected to pick back up again over the weekend. So there is a lot of fear happening right now. Already more than 10,000 structures burned between all of these fires. At one point, there have been 6 fires in just about the past week, 6 large fires. Of course, the 2 biggest are the Palisades fire, which we're looking at now, which has kind of spread unexpectedly, and of course the Eaton fire, which is in the Pasadena, Altadena, Sierra Madre area, which we haven't been focused on as much this morning because they're in such an active firefight here as Encino prepares for evacuations, and parts of the San Fernando Valley as this fire approaches the 405, now on the west side of the 405, and spreading despite the lull in the winds right now.
Well, I think, the other thing about this is we are still in this active firefight, right, in Brentwood. You still have people in our viewing area. I personally have a friend who has a family member who is missing from the Palisades fire who lived in the Malibu area. He has not been able to get a hold of her since Monday. So you have anxiety there from people who have not been able to get in touch with loved ones. You have people in the Eaton fire who are now trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. I've seen so many stories of so many people who have lost just everything. And when we say everything, these fires are burning these homes to the ground. And I think that's the other thing that is striking to me this morning as we watched, Rudabeh, as you were talking about that home go up in flames in the hillside there, is just how quickly it went from a little look like spot fire to now the home is gone. The intensity and the temperatures of these fires. I saw a friend of mine in Malibu who lost her home. She was able to find some metal objects, and she said she looked it up and that the temperature was likely around 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit for it to be able to melt the way that it did. She's someone who has a science type background, but you think about just the veracity and the temperatures that are striking these properties and just taking them, as you see on the right-hand side of your screen that was taken earlier. That's the home we were talking about that is now just leveled to the ground.
Absolutely, within minutes. We want to go now on the phone to Artie Tapangarian. He is a developer, a longtime Pacific Palisades resident. I understand you've been there for about 30 years, and you built many of these homes, designed many of these homes. Of course, this is some of the most expensive real estate in the world when we talk about the ones that went up in the Pacific Palisades. Thank you for joining us. Tell me what's going through your mind right now. You're a victim of this fire and also someone who helped design what used to be there.
Yes, thank you. It's a very, very sober time for us. We lost, of course, our home, and my daughter's home was just completed nearby recently, and then one of the major icons of the properties on San Onofre that was and many others. The school project, the village school in Pacific Palisades, that was another one of our properties and projects that we completed. And I had a chance to go through the area, and it's really, really, it's very surreal that how the whole community disappearing, so quickly. Is not just the homes. Homes, of course, are nested around the community, but the community of Pacific Palisades is destroyed, and it's not there, and it's going to be a long time before you can put all the pieces together.
Well, that's, you talk about just the community, and I think that's what's striking so many people. We had a member of the Red Cross on, and KCAL News has partnered with the Red Cross for our KCAL Cares campaign. But the recovery efforts are going to be just enormous. The Red Cross is just one organization. But when you talk about a community, I mean, you're talking about churches, schools, theaters, and I'm just wondering, with you being a developer, what are you hearing from people? Even those who haven't lost their homes, do they even want to go back to these communities that are now lost?
I think it's going to be a major surprise for people. Somehow I was able to go through these areas the other night and just to see for myself, because I couldn't believe the devastation. And it literally looks like a nuclear bomb was dropped in our area. When you're seeing the blocks of the areas just completely with no homes on, and when you have no grocery stores, no gas stations, no post office, no schools, all the major, places that these people raise to our kids, and the many people, especially older people, that I think this is going to be a very challenging time. Even, in my estimation, is minimum 3 to 5 years. But during that time, I'm not sure. For sure, my family, they're telling me that they're not interested to go back anymore.
Yeah.
What is it like for you? You've seen some of these amazing works of art from start to finish. You envisioned what they would look like. You brought that to fruition. That must have been such an amazing feeling to create something like that. And now to see it gone, that's like really full circle for you.
Yeah, it's quite devastating to see, because it's not just the structures is what brought in. I mean, one of these properties, again, it's not about the dollars, but it was one of the most iconic, most let's put it this way, for sure, most expensive home in Pacific Palisades that just gone. But next door to it, it was another property that I built long ago, was actually the Hanks's project property, and that stood by, and everything else around it, just one house in the middle of the whole thing just went away. And if you look at 1601 San Onofre Drive, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was out there, as a matter of fact, already on, I believe it was Thursday. Is that when I was out there?
It's hard to keep track.
It is hard. We've been doing this for so long now, it seems. But I think the thing that was most striking to me is you are a part of a very, people talk about just the mansions and the beauty of the Pacific Palisades. These are still people's homes. This left so many people in just such dire situations. I don't want people across the country also to think it is just celebrities and the people who can rebuild. I know in the Palisades, I had a very good friend where their property had been in their family for at least 3 generations. There are people that have been there for a very long time, who just love this place. They've raised their kids there. Their grandkids have come back. Their children have moved into condos and things nearby. Those are now gone and have been taken. So it's not just the high-end, very luxury places and people with the means to rebuild. This is a community that really was special in so many ways, because there were so many different people that had really made it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not, even if you were in a garage, it doesn't matter, because the fire is not discriminating, and this thing is just so people's anchors. I mean, myself, that you feel that this is your base. This is, I happen to have a vineyard by my house too, and I thought that was going to help me with the fire, but the issue is that people's base, especially at the older age, people, they don't have any, where am I, you feel naked. Actually, I mean, literally, we have everything is gone, everything on the property, including our bank, which was Bank of America, which is basically, we put a lot of things in there. Also, our bank burned down too. This is just a major devastation, and it just really hard for me to look at this from a perspective of how do you. It's not just about the structures. The soul of the community went, and that's the hard part that's going to be put back together. And I've talked to many people, and they're just totally, they don't know what. It has nothing to do with your economic condition. It's just that they feel lost. They feel like
a home is really a person's sanctuary, and even if people can afford a mansion, many people perhaps lost everything, let's say in a revolution, and came back and built everything from scratch. This is hard earned in many cases. And when you talk about the soul of the community, the commercial centers, the restaurants, the gathering places, the houses of worship, those really are more than just structures. Those are places where people forged memories, where people came together, where people forged relationships with one another, and not to have those landmarks anymore makes a person feel lost.
No, it's going to be I think this is a different one, because it's affecting so many people at all different levels. It doesn't matter what your economic level is. Even if you somehow are able to save your house, I'm telling you, you won't be able to live there anymore.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't make sense when you drive on a street that every house on both sides of the street is gone, and then your house is stayed fine for whatever reason. I doubt it that you would want to be there, and I hope that we be able to gather our strength to put some of these things back together. But I think emotionally is going to be a very, very difficult time for many of us, many people.
I heard that exact sentiment from so many people out there of just, it wasn't, I'm going to go stay here for a few weeks and then figure out how to rebuild. I heard from people, one young man, his family, he has extended family in Japan, and he's like, I'm out, I'm going, I don't want to be here anymore. There were other people in the area that had escaped and fled to Brentwood and hoped that area wouldn't be impacted. And I'm thinking about them as well, that now this is potentially, they've lost their home in the Palisades, and now they've gone to Brentwood, which is being evacuated. And just the trauma of going through that, I don't know how many people are going to want to come back and take their kids to school down streets where homes are gone. And as you said, the grocery store is gone. I know that was a big one for a lot of people, is that a lot of people loved walking to the Ralph's that was there. That was almost a community spot. You think about talking to your cashiers, and everybody knows each other, and you get a little gossip inside the grocery store of what's happening in the neighborhood. And that's now, it looks like a bomb went off, as you said. And I do think, as other people, as we're still in the firefight today, as that calms down and people can see the devastation, I think it's going to hit just so many others, that these are places, even if you didn't live there, that are now forever changed. As Rudabeh talked about, restaurants you used to visit, it was very striking to me driving along PCH to no longer even be able to tell where the Real Inn was, where Moon Shadows was. It's not just one area affected. I think having so many of these fires, so many memories for people are going to be, it's just going to be very, very heartbreaking when people are finally able to see what's happened.
My daughter, she just had a child, and they built a beautiful home near the high school in Palisade because there was flats and they felt completely safe. And right on Tuesday morning, I went and visited. It looked fine, and basically their home completely vanished, and the whole block vanished right behind the high school, the Pali High. And she absolutely, and she's born and raised in Palisades. She's done, so there's no schools, actually. All the schools are gone. I mean, this is going to be really crazy. Because I have no reason to want to be in this area anymore. I'm leaving, and this is the younger group. But for the older folks, which I know quite a few that they have lost their homes, is quite devastating. To what to do next. And it reminds me of the COVID time, that the beginning of March of 2020, that, how everybody kind of changed their perspective from materialistic side of life to the spirits, and how people actually, their emotions, and this just reminds me of a lot of that again.
Absolutely. I was saying the same thing about the COVID time. It was, a crisis that everyone shared. Everyone was in it together. Everyone in the initial stages maybe said, oh, I know someone who, I know a cousin who got COVID. And then in the end, it ended up touching everyone. I want to talk to you just quickly from your perspective as a builder, as a developer. Some of these estimates put the damage at $150 billion. Put that in perspective for us. I know you built Tom Hanks's house. You built a lot of these celebrity homes, these very expensive mansions. You say that you estimate 3 to 5 years before you can even build here again. Talk about what goes into rebuilding a community. It doesn't matter if it's big, luxurious homes or, quaint cottages. What goes into rebuilding the community, and what are you looking at from a perspective of a builder, and especially when we know that insurance companies have been pulling out of these areas?
I think it's going to be quite challenging. It just happened today our company became 44 years old, and I've been built many of these very special homes around the town, and been very involved as an architect and a builder and everything else. So the issue is going to be we need to, and I'm actually putting together something to help people to just know what to do as far as from where to start. From a building process, I think the estimate is going to be far more than that. because the infrastructures, a lot of these places, there's no electricity. All the power poles, I saw so many streets that basically all the power poles, all the infrastructure is gone. So by the time, you go through a process of permitting, design, all of these things and finding people, I think the challenge is going to be far, far more than that. There's going to be shortage of both supply, labor, materials, everything, even if you can find those things. And for a lot of people, I know they're underinsured. I know for a fact somebody that basically in a multi-mega mansion, actually they really don't have any insurance for it. So this is going to be a big challenge from both the infrastructure, the process, insurance, banks. I mean, right now, again, I'm talking to people that their coverage is less than their mortgage amount. So there's going to be a challenge for a lot of people to even if they have insurance, to get their money for their insurance because the banks are going to be, they're basically the leaseholder. They own that's why the banks, they ask you to insure your buildings, so they get to reserve their capital. But it's going to be very challenging. I think the estimate is far more than that.
Well, I think about, too, I was at a condo complex the other day, and, there's 107 units, I was told, within that condo complex that is now just gone. And you think of just the homeowners association, when you talk about insurance, the homeowners association, they had been dropped. They had gotten people to collect money to then get the state insurance. I mean, then the legal ramifications of potentially one of the homeowners suing, and just the tying up in the legal process that can occur. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, and I'm not sure what you know, but my husband's a materials scientist, and one of his biggest concerns is the cleanup of a lot of these properties and the toxicity of some of the materials. Do you know anything about that? I know people have been told to,
in general, I think there's going to be a lot of these type of challenges because right now, even the fire retardant materials that's being dropped, there's going to be a lot of those situations happens, and that is correct. I think many of these homes were older homes that potentially they have been exposed to asbestos and other things that now it's all open to air. It's there. And there's going to be a lot of things. I just hope that the officials get together and step back and change this from a process to an outcome. That what is it that they're trying to accomplish? Because I drove on Pacific Coast Highway. It is the saddest thing, between Topanga and Carbon Beach and those areas. This is just. Going through the process between the Coastal Commission and Malibu and all of that is it's very devastating for normal people, even for us that we've been in business for a long time. But I hope that somebody steps up and says, listen, we're going to help the people to get through this.
Absolutely.
And not just on the economic side, but just in the process. People are lost right now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The mental anguish of just not knowing what to do next.
I've heard this called the California Compromise, right? It's so beautiful here. The mountains, the ocean. Of course, people want to live in these exclusive areas where this natural beauty is. But is this shifting now as we see the climate change and we see these fires become more and more frequent? We don't even have a fire season anymore here in Southern California. How will building be going forward? Do you think that people will be rebuilding here?
I think we are dealing with the Mother Nature at the same time. Building these homes in the middle of the jungles, think of that way. And then, there is an ecosystem, there is a process that nature is taking that we're dealing with. We decided to be in the middle of it. And, right now I'm in Bel Air area, I'm looking at the sky and looking at how close the fire is to 405 and the Getty Museum. I worked on that project long ago, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, if fire can get there, what else could happen here now? how far this thing could go. But I think at the end of the day, there's going to need to be a lot of soul searching as far as how we can enjoy this amazing area at the same time, be able to have a balance with the nature that's going on. There's a lot of imbalances going on right now that we are dealing with, and I mean, how they're going to dry these Santa Monica mountains? How are you going to dry it up? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to put flame retardant on the whole thing? I think there is a lot here that just happened organically over the, let's say, last 100 years.
Yeah.
And now we are seeing something that man, as powerful as it thinks they are, they're not, as they can't deal with they can't fight the nature when nature decides to go in this direction.
Well, especially, we're not just talking about the Palisades fire. We're talking about so many fires that firefighters are having to battle over this last week. Artie, thank you so much for being with us this morning and providing your expertise and perspective on just so many different aspects of this. And we are so sorry, and just want you to know our hearts are with you as you have also been impacted by this fire.
Thank you so much, and I wish all the best for all the whole community.
Yes, I think all of our hearts are with Angelenos today. Thank you, Artie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We do want to look at this fire. You can see firefighters on the ground hoping to hold the line. I just looked up where this is located. This is about 6 miles to the west of the Getty Museum, where we are seeing those active flames enter into some very thick vegetation right now. And you can see firefighters just next to those homes, apparently concerned that those flames are going to potentially impact homeowners in this area.
Yeah, and we've been watching this just in the past couple of hours. We watched a home burn to the ground, and people are looking at this, and this is how they're seeing their homes. The people who have evacuated, they're seeing their homes go up in flames along with the rest of us as we watch this coverage live. We want to go now back to Mahsa Saidi. She is at the Hastings Ranch area at the other fire, the Eaton fire on the east side, and she's standing by with a spokesperson for the city of Pasadena. So, what are you seeing there?
Hi there, Rudabeh and Jamie. So we know across LA, so many people are under a mandatory evacuation order. And some people, frankly, are fed up with this. They look at the property, they look at the images, and they might think that it's safe to go back. But we just want to stress the message that we are hearing from local officials. We heard it from Sheriff Luna earlier today. Just because a property looks safe, just because you think a fire is out, doesn't mean that it's actually safe. But authorities are determining what communities are safe to re-enter. Here in Hastings Ranch, they are letting people back in. The National Guard, if you have a valid ID that shows you belong here. But apparently, guys, some people are trying to get in here and they don't belong here. I want to bring in Lisa Derderian, the PIO for the city of Pasadena. I know you live here, and I know that this has been a very difficult time for you. You were telling me that people were trying to get in, claiming to be private security hired for homes, and that's just not true.
They're using any excuses they can to try to get up here. We've already arrested several looters. I mean, they're like cockroaches. They're going to try to find in a way if they can. That's why we have very robust police patrols up here, National Guard. Whether you're private security or contractor trying to get up here, you're going to have to wait. Right now, we're still in an emergency response mode.
And I know at the Pasadena Convention Center, where everyone that had to evacuate from Altadena and Pasadena, they're gathering there. Very vulnerable time, I mean, regardless to say. And there's even people approaching people at the shelter. Tell me about that.
Right. People are in a vulnerable state because of what they've been through, rightfully so. So please be vigilant. If people approach you and they're contractors, insurance companies, please vet it through the proper channels, official channels. Ask somebody at our shelter that is in official capacity. Call the city. Please do not fall prey because people, unfortunately, they're definitely vulnerable, and people, we're seeing scams and frauds starting already.
Is there anything else that you want people to know as they do come back and they're coming back onto this property? And right there you can see a Santa from what used to be your holiday celebration. So devastating.
Right. Just please, we ask for the public's patience. We are doing all that we can. Go to our city website, cityofpasadena.net. We have some great information. We're updating it minute by minute. And, we have 2,000 plus city employees that are here to help, working 24/7.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here with us. And Ruta Bay, Jamie, I just wanted to quickly mention for people that are going to be filing an insurance claim, the first thing you want to do is grab a copy of your policy. If you don't have one, if you lost it, ask your insurance company in writing. They are required to give you a copy of your policy within 30 days. Immediately get in touch with your insurance company and find out what coverage you have. How much can you get for your house? How much can you get for your personal belongings? And also what's known as additional living expenses, which you can get to cover, the hotel costs. Make sure you are keeping all of your receipts. And as Lisa said, a lot of people are trying to take advantage. So make sure you go to websites like FEMA and don't sign anything in this moment. I'll send it back over to you guys.
And definitely make sure what you say to the insurance companies, because they can use that against you later on. Thank you so much, Massa. We want to go back now to Assignment Manager Mark Liu, who has been tracking the firefight from all angles at the desk with the very latest. Mark.
Yeah, this aerial firefight, it does continue, and we are getting more data about where the fire has burned over the last 4 days as it continues to move east towards the 405 and north towards the Encino Reservoir. Now we're looking at some video from KCAL of the southern part of the fire line as it moves towards the 405. I'm going to show you on the map in just a second where this is, but if you can think of the 405 as it moves north and south through the Sepulveda Pass, this fire is on the western side of the 405, and it is basically paralleling the 405. There's a long line, basically almost in the same shape as the 405 as it goes through the Sepulveda Pass. And what we're looking at here is the southern end of that line. So closer, if you could think of the 405, if you go through the 405 on your day-to-day commute, this is near the bottom part of the 405 as you're coming out of the mountains to the south. And you can see firefighters there standing in the burned out scar of the vegetation near Mandeville Canyon. This is near the southern part of Mandeville Canyon. There's a very large neighborhood down there. And these firefighters, very, very brave men and women. You can see the flames, enormous 20-foot flames at the base of that canyon. They are looking at it. These are experienced and well-trained hand crews that know what level of danger they're in. But, to the untrained eye, it seems like any other normal person would want to run from such a dangerous situation. But those firefighters, they know what they are doing and are able to spot those flames there. And then you can see how smoky it is. And look at that. I think that is the DC-10. Let me check the radar here on my screen. And yeah, that's tanker 912, one of the 2 DC-10s that are currently operating in our airspace, capable of dropping 9,000 gallons of retardant. They are operating out of San Bernardino Airport. So every time they drop one of these retardant lines, they fly all the way back to the city of San Bernardino and land and reload with approximately $65,000 of retardant. That is how much the value of the retardant is in there, and they do it over and over again. There is a facility there at San Bernardino International that allows those crews to rapidly fill up the tanks of those modified DC-10s originally created to carry passengers. Now they are dropping Phos-Chek, long lines of fire retardant in these communities there in the Mandeville Canyon area. Now, I want to actually show you some data, if we can go away from KCAL to my screen in just a second. The FIRM's website, the NASA FIRM's infrared sensing satellite, has updated some information. This is the Fire Information for Resource Management. We've been looking at this over the last couple of days. These red areas are heat signatures detected by satellites in orbit, and it shows just how hot the first day of the Palisades fire. This was on January 7th. If I advance it to January 8th, you can see that heat bloom. Suddenly, how enormous it becomes on that second day. This is when a huge part of the Palisades was destroyed. As I reduce the opacity there, you can see virtually all of the community of Pacific Palisades is underneath that heat bloom. And that's where a tremendous amount of damage was done. And then as I advance it to January 9th, you can see that the flanks of the fire separated into a northern flank and a southern flank as those winds started to subside and aerial attack began. This was yesterday, where we really thought that things were starting to look a lot better. You can see that the flanks yesterday were simply this area, and this area, 3 areas. And then as I advance to today, this is completely new data that we have. You can see that those western flanks, there's absolutely no heat signature over there. This is one silver lining, one bright spot in the fight in the Palisades fire. But unfortunately here, we can now see just where all of that fire is burning, and you can see the heat signature now blooming up towards those satellites in orbit. You can see Mandeville Canyon right there in the center of your screen. This is where the firefight is most intense this morning, and this is where those aerial assets are going to focus on saving homes. Rube, Jamie?
Well, they're going to focus on saving homes, Mark, but they also are going to focus on not having that across the 405, because that would be devastating if this moves over to the east and further into the valley and places like Sherman Oaks and Van Nuys and those types of places. That would be really concerning to people. We do want to get back out to Laura Hafley, who is at the south side of Brentwood watching this intense firefight right now. Laura, what have you been seeing over the last 30 minutes or so?
So I'm standing off camera right now. My photographer Brian's going to zoom in to this red retardant. You just see a DC-10 just now dropping it onto these properties, onto this terrain. Again, this is really helpful for the firefight because this terrain is so inaccessible for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's steep, it's hard to get to. And second of all, obviously, it's at the center of this fire, making it a really dangerous place for these hand crews to be. So those red retardant drops, really helpful. Now, we've watched this fire. It's changed directions significantly. Just moments ago, this fire was coming down this ridge towards this property, but now what we're seeing is it's going back up. That's a really good example of how unpredictable these fires can be and why it's important, if you're told to evacuate, to do so. Fire crews, law enforcement officials, just trying to keep you safe. It's important to heed those warnings and those evacuations. Now, where we are now is at the top of this canyon where there is plenty to burn. You're seeing all of this dry brush here that has yet to be affected by the fire, which is why we're seeing crews hanging out on roadways anticipating this fire if the wind decides to change directions. And again, you would think that that process is slow, right? That wind changes, the fire begins to move again in a different way, but that movement can be incredibly fast and unpredictable. Again, that is because of these high winds, and it's because of how much there is to burn. Now, these neighborhoods so far, these homes that we're looking at down in these canyons, excuse me, it's a little hard to breathe, down in these canyons are safe for now, which is great news for these homeowners. But again, these fire crews still keeping an eye on the area. I want to zoom in really quick to this home down here. It has some kind of pond of some kind. If CAL FIRE or any of the firefighting agencies decides it's necessary, they will dip into that tiny body of water with a bucket. They'll pull water out and they will use it to get rid of some of these flames. Easier said than done, but that is an option. And again, fire crews really considering everything here. There are a lot of resources. They're certainly spread thin across the area. We're here with CAL FIRE spokesperson Devin. We were just talking, Devin, about what happens, this area getting a little bit quieter with the helicopters and the planes. Why is that?
Yeah, again, just to reiterate, our air resources are just so crucial. We just saw the DC-10 drop about 9,500 gallons of retardant all the way on the backside of Mandeville Canyon. It really just gives us a step up in the right direction to really make some improvement on these fires.
Can you give some insight into how these hand crews might be feeling right now, the ones who are down there in the thick of it?
Yeah, I can't say for certain. I don't think there's any specific hand crews, but there's definitely engine crews down there. We can see one back behind that larger residential structure, kind of where you can see it creeping down to it. But they also, like I said, they just got that retardant drop right behind them, so that really gives them, a leg up, a real fighting chance to defend properties.
How good does this red retardant work? Because again, we've seen these flames that we're looking at now sort of change directions several times. If it chooses to do so again and it runs in to that red retardant, what happens?
Yeah, retardant, definitely doesn't put a fire out. It's made to really slow the process. That's why we like to keep it as close to the homes as possible. So when the fire does eventually hit that point, we actually have, like I said, a fighting chance.
Yeah, so Devin, obviously, he's been firefighting for 10 years. Thank you for talking to us. This is a really tough battle. Guys like Devin, his teammates at CAL FIRE, all agencies across California doing what they can to get a handle on the Palisades fire and the other fires burning in the area. Again, really important to pay attention to those evacuation orders. Laura Hafley, KCAL News.
Out there, I'm going to sound like your mother for a second. I've heard you cough a few times. You're in a very smoky area. I hope you and your crew can get a mask on and a little reprieve while you're out there with these fires.
Having a tough time hearing you guys.
Well, I'm wagging my finger at you if you can hear me to put a mask on. But the air quality is of concern throughout Southern California and Los Angeles. Of just, even if you don't think that there are that it's as bad where you're at. I know, like Culver City, Marina Del Rey, I saw people biking yesterday without a mask on, going for runs and those types of things. There are still lots of particles in the air, and the air quality is not healthy. We are seeing
it is actually a public health emergency right now.
Yes, but look at what we're looking at. This is incredible. I can watch this all day long as these helicopters and aircraft fill up just that much needed water to go fight in this firefight.
Absolutely. I want to get now to reporter Barry Pintar. He is in Brentwood overlooking Mandeville Canyon, and you have been seeing what these helicopters and this aircraft is doing in this firefight. It's just, it looks like fog behind you, but it's just completely covered with smoke in that canyon area.
Yeah, a little earlier, we were actually in the Mandeville Canyon itself, where all the homes were up and down the streets. And I can tell you, talking about the air assault, we know that 10 assets were moved into this area to help fight this. And we saw, when we were there live, if you've been watching all morning, one after the other. I'm talking literally seconds in between each, doing these water drops or fire retardant drops. It's incredible. You know, we overuse words like apocalyptic and war zone and that type of thing, but I'll tell you, the number of aircraft that were flying over our heads, probably sometimes only within a football field higher than us, it just made it feel like some kind of war zone. They were coming one after the other. And let's face it, these firefighters are facing a war of fire, as tens of thousands of acres have already burned, hundreds of thousands evacuated, trying to protect these homes. Now, let me show you a little bit about of what I'm seeing here. Damien, can we go over this way just a little bit? I want to show you how close the fire flames are to these homes here. Now, if you see through the middle of those two roofs, you can see that fire line. Whether you call it going up or going down would be the bad news, but clearly it is stretching the side of that mountain, getting dangerously low to where this house line starts. So again, when we're talking Mandeville Canyon, earlier you saw me in the middle of a neighborhood. Now we are overlooking on the other side of where we are, and it is these flames that firefighters are trying to control. Damien, I don't know, are you too low to see this stretch of ridge down there? I don't know. Can you see that? Give me a nod if you. Okay, he gave me a thumbs up. All right, so what you're looking at there is a lower ridge, but what I want you to see is the way it stretches all the way down to the bottom of that canyon and up. So just to give you a perspective of where we're standing. So you saw those houses just a moment ago. So we are here. The canyon goes down and up. So it's that far away from going down and coming up to threaten the homes in this area. So I got a cord tangled here. Let me untangle it real quickly. All right, Damien, if you can, one more time, just so I can get people at home perspective of what we're dealing with. So you saw that. Now we're going to pivot around here. You're going to see some media here. And this is where the thickness, if you will, of the neighborhood and the home start. So it looked like we were out in the middle of nowhere as I stood there, but I wanted to make sure I gave you a vantage point of the homes that just line up, go down that hill. You're going to also notice those two fire trucks at the ready. We are seeing that everywhere. When we were in the Mandeville Canyon neighborhood, I can tell you there were so many fire trucks lined up ready to assault this fire that they actually were lining up on the side of the road and then parking in the driveway, and lining up on the side of the road and parking in the driveway, trying to have that covered. Okay, let's move back around. And as much as I want to keep an eye on this little line of fire coming down here, because of course that's where the danger is, there was earlier this morning, I think we got here at like 4:30 this morning. Even closer than that, on that hillside, on the other side of that house, there were fires that could at any moment just picked up. Because as much as we are saying the winds have died down, I can tell you they have not died down enough to make firefighting officials comfortable with the, quote, calm winds that are better for in terms of doing this type of firefighting operation. So again, in terms of the assault, I'm looking, sometimes the smoke is so thick I can hear them, but you can't see them here. Let me just point out one other thing if I can, because I heard you talking about fire retardant in a previous live shot. Damien, if you can go down to those flames that we were looking. First of all, I want you to notice how in a matter of seconds they have diminished to where they were when we looked there a moment ago. If you're seeing some of those trees that look like autumn, whether you're looking at my live shot here or someone else, kind of that orange-yellow haze, that is oftentimes the fire retardant drops from the air assault or the air assets, trying to get that flame not to spread. Now, I can tell you, Damien, if you look up just a little bit from that ridge line, I just saw two other fire lines pop up, and now I saw a very clear fire line pop up so now we almost got a T there, heading up that hillside right there, and then perpendicular to that, there goes another line up that hill, and there's another one. So what are we seeing? We have all day this massive amount of fire assault going on. They are making incredible progress. Now, tragically, I'm not sure how much you guys talked about it, because as we were coming up here from the actual Mandeville Canyon Road neighborhood, I wasn't able to have my ears on totally to hear what you said, but of course we now know. 3 hours ago, I was able to tell you the good news is no houses have perished or no structures have not burned. Well, unfortunately, that is not the case anymore. We did lose one house right there on Mandeville Canyon Road. But at this point, only one. But we are certainly keeping an eye on these flames for the other side of that canyon, and certainly for those homes over there. We're going to stay here live, and if anything happens, we'll make sure we break back in for you. Reporting here in Mandeville Canyon, Barry Pintar, KCAL News. Back to you guys.
All right, Barry, we thank you for that report. I'm just struck by how thick that smoke is out there. Firefighters really trying to make progress on this fire right now. And if people are just tuning in, this is part of the Palisades fire. It did spread from the Palisades over toward Brentwood. So even if they're hearing this morning, containment did go up in that fire, but on a different side of the fire. And this is the current firefight that is taking place right now. We also want to let people know it is 12:25 right now. At 12:30 on CBS, we are going to turn to the NFL game. It's, of course, the Chargers. Our LA Chargers are playing the Houston Texans. And I do know in some of these situations that is a little bit of a reprieve for people to be able to tune in and have some normalcy and watch a football game. So go ahead and cheer for our hometown team as we continue fire coverage here.
On KCAL, yeah, we'll continue on KCAL fire coverage wall to wall. The weather, of course, playing a very pivotal role in these firefights. And meteorologist Alex Biston is tracking those conditions. And Alex, a lot of people in the San Fernando Valley, Sherman Oaks, Encino area thought that maybe we would get a reprieve last night a little bit as the winds died down, firefighters as well, and then this unexpected shift.
And I know there is a lot of concern. I have been watching conditions in many different points here in and around the Palisades fire. Of course, Brentwood and Encino. We've got our reporters all over the place. I've been watching the conditions, and we have seen the gusts tick up just a bit over the last few hours in Brentwood. So we've got northwest winds sustained about 21 miles per hour, gusting up to about 35. So you could see that in Barry's live shot, and you've been able to see it through the morning hours if you've been tuned in here, is that the wind, it ebbs and flows. So we tend to see a stronger gust, and then it'll pull back just a bit. I also want to take you to Encino, where another one of our reporters are this morning stationed. I've got winds out of the northeast, a little bit lighter there, sustained about 9 miles per hour, but seeing a gust at times up to about 19 miles per hour. Take a look at the humidity value, 19% 15%. So when we see those humidity values down into the teens, sometimes even into the single digits, that is what activates the red flag warning and the high fire danger. Now, overall, we are generally seeing those offshore winds impacting a lot of our wind-prone communities. You know who you are. If you live in Santa Clarita, if you live in CB Valley, you're generally seeing winds right now between 30 to 35 miles per hour. Camarillo as well, all the way out filtering into the Santa Monica Mountains. We are seeing those winds across the Inland Empire into San Bernardino. You've got a gust about 35 miles per hour, 15 to 20 mile an hour winds in Riverside. So it is blustery in some parts of the Inland Empire. So we're watching the wind today. We're watching the wind tomorrow, and then it is possible that we see moderate to even stronger winds develop as we head into time period from Monday to about Wednesday. Okay, once we get past that period, things look to improve. We need rain, and we need a really good rain. I don't have that for us. We do have a slight chance that we could see some wet weather as we head toward the end of the week, but we're into the thick of January, and we're typically not talking about these winds so late into the winter season. Typically, we've had some rain by this time. So want to show you the winds as we head through the next few hours into tonight. You can see those winds increasing across, again, our wind-prone areas like Riverside, Santa Clarita, out toward Glendale, Ontario, and Lancaster, too. This is important. This is the wind futurecast. I'm going to step out of the frame here so you can see that those winds will impact areas like Corona, Foothill Ranch as we head into this afternoon. Let's go to the Ventura County valleys all the way out toward Camarillo, Santa Paula. As we head into late tonight, winds about 20 miles per hour. Winds strengthen into early tomorrow. So you can see some of that red starting to appear on the map there. That's an indication that we're seeing winds upwards of about 30 miles per hour. Winds will strengthen as we head into Monday. So again, that's that time period that we're looking at those winds to increase as we head Monday, Tuesday, possibly through Wednesday. So high fire danger, that's the story today, as our fire weather outlook showing you elevated to critical levels. And for many areas of Southern California, including the LA Basin, Orange County, and all the way up through our local mountains. So again, high wind warnings, wind advisories. We've got the fire danger. We've got a few more rounds of wind, Rudabeh and Jamie. We will be here watching it for you, of course, as we head through the next few days. Back to you.
Alex, thank you. And we do want to let you know that on CBS Channel 2, we are going to take you now to the NFL today. It's followed by the Chargers game at 1:30.
Yeah, we will continue our live fire coverage on Channel 9. And on CBS 2, we'll be back with more coverage at halftime.
We now want to go to Mark Liu, our assignment manager, who is tracking the firefight. He's at the desk with the very latest. And Mark, I know so many people on the east side of the 405 so relieved to be seeing all these aircraft dumping water and retardant.
Yeah, it is a nearly continuous fight with these aircraft. There are probably 6 to 7 water-dropping helicopters. And now I count at least 5 fixed-wing aircraft, including a former Coast Guard C-130 that has been converted into a water-dropping aircraft for CAL FIRE. It was part of an aircraft that we got here in California with an authorization by President Biden from the National Defense Authorization Act back in December of 2023. We got 7 C-130s that the Coast Guard used to own. We got them here in California for our use as water-dropping aircraft. At least one of them is now operating in this airspace. Now, what we're looking at here is live pictures from SkyCal of the southern end of Mandeville Canyon, where there is still a fight to save a home there that is on the hillside. As you can see by the GPS locator at the top of your screen, it's at Westridge and Cordelia. We have been watching these flames slowly creep up around this hillside, this west-facing hillside here, as firefighters do structure protection on a home down there. The good news is it looks like they are getting a pretty good handle on that fire, and that home may survive as the flames are moving actually down the canyon and away from that home. But this fire line, Jamie and Rudabeh, is about 2.5 miles long, virtually paralleling Mandeville Canyon and the 405. So this is just one of the many properties that they are struggling to protect as this fire moves to the east and the north. This flank of the Palisades fire, really the only part of it that is burning today, this weekend. Now, let me bring you out to my map and show you a 3D view of where the fire has burned and where this firefight continues. If the director can come to my screen, I want to show you the CAL FIRE map. We've seen this many times. This is the 3D version. And right now I'm going to draw on it here and show you where the flanks of the fire are operating. SkyCal was just looking at a home that's right down there. That's essentially SkyCal was flying in this direction over here and looking at homes here. But the fire line continues all the way up through here, all the way around in this direction. And people in the San Fernando Valley can really see the northern flank. It is putting up so much smoke that is drifting down towards the ocean. People are really commenting, and it's creating a lot of worried looks in the San Fernando Valley because it looks like this fire is approaching pretty rapidly. Now, if I zoom in here, you're going to see all of these white dots. These are all satellite images of homes, and you can see as I move up through Mandeville Canyon just how many homes are down in this canyon. We know that at least this home right here we saw was destroyed. This was that home where we saw 2 strict water drops on that home, but it was unable to save it. And then, of course, there are homes further up the canyon here, all the way as they loop around towards the Encino Reservoir. And right here is one of those water sources that all of the Sikorsky Firehawks and Sky Cranes are going to in order to do water drops here and here and here to stop the forward progress. Now, we have also seen elements of both LA County Fire, Ventura County Fire, and LA City Fire all along Mandeville Canyon doing structure protection, particularly in the homes here where we've actually had some reporters. They are very concerned about this neighborhood as the fire continues this way, but they are pushing back with that structure protection, hopefully in order to stop the fire from moving any further to the east, because as you had mentioned, this is the 405 freeway right through there, and we definitely do not want it going across the 405 freeway into these communities of Bel Air and Beverly Hills and such. There's another source of water. As I change my map here, I'm going to show you right here, the Stone Canyon Reservoir. This is also a great source for those water dropping helicopters. It's only about 2 miles away from the fire line. So we are seeing a continuous cycle of aircraft going back and forth from those 2 reservoirs in order to get water. If I go to the radar, I can take a quick look and see what's going on here. Looks like we got a Chinook that's been doing the same kind of work. That's a CH-47 capable of dropping 3,000 gallons. We got another Firehawk. You can see the orange lines. This is the flight path, and they've been landing at the Encino Reservoir as well as the Stone Canyon Reservoir as well. And I'm waiting actually here to see if we can get another one of those very long Phos-Chek lines coming in from right there. This guy, Tanker 914. You can just see the green lines, the high altitude lines. I count maybe 8 to 10 lines back and forth here to San Bernardino International Airport. That's where that DC-10 has been landing and refueling with Phos-Chek and coming in and dropping those very long Phos-Chek lines all in this space in order to get some fire retardant there on the ground. If we go out to SkyCal Live, it looks like one of those de Havilland DHC-8-400s just did a Phos-Chek there. That's a smaller aircraft, but able to carry Phos-Chek. And you can see down there on the ground, there is definitely some hand crews that are doing structure protection and making sure that everybody in Mandeville Canyon is evacuated because all of these homes are in harm's way. And you can see just how far it stretches. As I said, 2.5 mile fire line, 2.5 miles of canyon. That's a lot of space in order to protect and try and track down, as Jamie, you had said, these whack-a-mole fires that come up. The embers spot, homes are in danger, they're able to put them out, and then they quickly scoot over to another area in order to protect a different part of the neighborhood.
And Mark, sometimes crews do just let some brush burn in order to form a containment line. So people who see smoke that way, they don't really have a way of distinguishing whether this is a controlled burn, whether the flames are getting out of control. And so many people who have had evacuation orders within the past 12 hours or so, 24 hours, on the east side of the 405 in the San Fernando Valley, we're talking about Sherman Oaks, Encino, those areas, really on alert to see if this fire is going to jump the 405. So what indication do we have of that as we take a look at this firefight?
Well, the good news is that the winds are not as severe as they have been over the last 4 days. And a lot of times when we see fire jumping large distances, it's due to those high winds carrying big embers all across. In Altadena, we saw those embers fly as much as 1.5 to 2 miles away. Also in Malibu, we saw the fire had burned homes that were a mile away from where the fire was burning in a line. So as the winds die down, you have a much less likelihood of embers flying all the way over to the 405 or all the way across the 405. So that's good. The weather is cooperating in a sense with the firefight here. Also, the vast amount of aerial assets show also that it's safe to fly. The winds are low enough that it's safe to fly. So hopefully they'll be able to stop this fire at Mandeville Canyon, which is really one ridge over from the 405. There are hundreds of homes down there in Mandeville Canyon, and that's what's in the way before this fire gets to the 405. So saving these neighborhoods is a top priority. And of course, if the fire continues to burn north, it will hit the southern end of Encino, and it's unclear how long it will take to get there. But the one bit of good news as well is that as the fire approaches Encino, it also approaches the Encino Reservoir, which is that crucial refilling station for all of these water dropping helicopters. So actually, as the fire moves north, they're going to get more and more water on it even quicker because the fire is essentially approaching the water source. But either way, they would like to have the fire stop right now. And to your point about how sometimes vegetation just burns and they're unable to stop it or unwilling to stop it, it's because they're making the choice. They can't be at every bit of fire all the time. So they are using both strategic and tactical views to target the places where they know they can make a difference. And that difference is needed immediately, like this home in the southern end of Mandeville Canyon. They have been targeting this with water drops and hand crews because they do not want to lose a structure. Further to the north, as it burns up there, there is actually at least a half a mile of nothing but open space. And so we're not seeing as intense of water drops up there. But if it continues, they will start attacking that flank too.
I mean,
always good when the reservoirs are full, which is not what we saw in the Palisades fire initially.
I mean, the other good part of it, and not only the reservoirs, is that the winds, as Mark's talking about, are to their benefit right now. Even though it did spread the fire towards this area, at this point in time, the wind conditions are somewhat low. I'm just concerned. They're really kind of they're racing the clock really right now because the winds are supposed to pick back up around 6 o'clock tonight. So they've got to get this under control before then. But we are just seeing just such an epic aerial assault as this fire continues to push, as Mark was saying, somewhat to the north, which is where we find Kirsten Mitchell on Park Lane Drive near Mulholland in Encino. And I know people are just concerned in this area, Kirsten.
Hi, yes, hello, sorry, we had a little signal issue here. We are in Encino, just off of Mulholland Drive, and we just met some homeowners at this home right here behind me. You can see there's someone actually on the roof. His name is Alex, and he is using a garden hose to water down his roof. He is obviously not yet evacuated, despite being under mandatory evacuation orders. His wife, Alina, is here as well. We were talking to her earlier, and they told us that they're pretty much the last ones in this neighborhood. They're kind of keeping an eye also on the neighbors' homes right now. They do have their car packed and ready to go, but right now they're holding out. They said they'll wait until they feel like they absolutely have to go. You know, behind him, you can see there's billowing smoke from the Palisades fire, and they've been watching that hillside, that ridge, all day, all night too. They said last night they even saw flames, so that is obviously super concerning. They were very worried. They have never seen anything like this before, but at the same time, they'd want to protect their home, and he's been watering the roof, the trees, the brushes, just trying to prep in case any embers come this way or the fire reaches this point. They are still a little bit a ways back. There is a good portion of land in between them and the fire line right now, and they do have a good vantage point of the fire. But of course, anyone in this area is really urged to leave if they haven't already. They said there's been some first responders that have come by too, and they've been telling them, hey, it's time to go. There's a lot of first responders in this area, but take a listen to more from my conversation with Alina.
We've seen fires before. It was close, but nothing of this magnitude of devastation. I mean, so many of our friends just lost their homes in Palisades and Altadena. My sister lives in Pasadena. She had to evacuate. Never anything like this. I've been in LA for 30 years and we're used to fires, but nothing like this.
just a really difficult time and a lot of uncertainty many homeowners are facing right now. I will say at this point in the Encino area, there is a ton of firefighters here. We've been driving by plenty of fire trucks, law enforcement. It does seem like this is kind of the staging area on the other side of the ridge, which is good news because they obviously don't want it impacting any more homes than it already has. We saw firefighters from Salt Lake City, Moab. I mean, these firefighters are coming in from all over, and you can see that on the trucks. So it is a big, massive effort here, and of course the aircraft too, nonstop here. So the firefighting efforts are very much ongoing and continuing. For now, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you for that reporting. We know at least 7 states, as well as the federal government and Canada, all assisting. And Mexico all assisting in this firefight. So we have seen crews from all over the place, and it's so nice to see them here.
Kirsten, thank you. I do, you see the picture of that man on the house putting water on the roof, and people are in such desperate situations there in Encino and in Brentwood. But if you've been asked to evecuate, you really do need to go. This is the time. And if you haven't evacuated yet, make sure you've gotten all of your paperwork, all of your things, because we've seen in these other areas just how quickly things can change. People out of homes now and everything destroyed. The federal government just put out a number. They have had 16,000 people apply for FEMA assistance.
So far. Days into it.
And many people were having problems with the FEMA system, so that number, of course, going to go up. But you just think of how many families impacted about this. Airbnb reporting too that 6,500 people have now been able to get placed through their business. So people are starting to find their way in this, even though it's unprecedented. It's something we'd never thought we would have to deal with in this area. But it just so many families impacted. And as you see, that man on the roof, it could potentially get worse.
Absolutely. And, we've seen some bad actors come out as well in terms of price gouging, in terms of raising rent prices, and in terms of reaching out to people with scams, construction scams, insurance scams. So, of course, the Attorney General looking out for that as well. Let's go back over now to Mark Liu, who is tracking this firefight at the desk with the very latest. And, of course, we're watching the Palisades fire. There's 4 very active fires and 6 fires burning over the past couple of days in Los Angeles. So we are focused on the Palisades fire right now because this is the most active firefight. But resources spread so thin right now, Mark.
Yeah, they really are. And the Palisades fire really has grown in 3 directions since it started on Tuesday morning. It went to the west, north, east, all the way, and then burning south all the way to the ocean. It's currently burning in the northeast. But this fire, it's so large and did so much destruction that it's sometimes hard to wrap your head around just how it grew, because it seemed to just go in every direction at once. And we in the newsroom here have put together this incredible animation that shows the timeline of how this fire advanced through the communities of Pacific Palisades and Malibu. Here it is, January 7th at 6:17. It was at 2,900 acres. And then on January 8th, that explosion to 15,000 acres. And then the next day, 17,000 acres as it progressed into the mountains. And then on the 9th, 19,000 acres. And you can see how far it had gotten into Malibu. And then we come to yesterday at 20,000 acres. And you can see 20 and then to 21,000 acres. But you see how far across it spread, and all the way up to the 11th, which is today at 22,660 acres. This is just information from 7:30 a.m. today. That's how far it has spread. And I want to come out to my map and actually show you where the fire line is, where the most activity is, as we replay this animation one more time, just because it's so remarkable. We were all stunned at this day on January 8th when it exploded through the Pacific Palisades area and did all of that damage. But you can see just the square acreage that it consumed through the mountains, which really, I've gone back into our archives. There have not been significant fires in this area for quite some time. And so a lot of this, except for the Franklin fire over in Malibu, which it burned right up to. When you see it here on the 10th and the 11th, that western end of the fire, it essentially stopped in Malibu because a fire of a month ago had already done all of the damage of burning the vegetation. There was nothing to burn. So if you come out to my screen, if you can, Director, or we can go to SkyCal instead here and look at live pictures here. This SkyCal is actually about over the 405 looking to the west. And you can see all of that burned hillside there. And as they zoom in, this is Temescal. You can see Temescal Canyon way out there in the distance. But this is in the northern flank of the fire, not near Mandeville Canyon. This is burning north towards that Encino Reservoir, which we had talked about just a few minutes ago. There still is an active flank over there, but I have seen not a tremendous amount of aerial drops going on in that direction because there aren't too many homes there. They really are focusing on Mandeville Canyon as that last canyon before the 405. And of course, there are hundreds of homes down there that they are working to protect. And the lines of Phosgene are slowly being laid by tankers like that DC-10, the McDonnell Douglas MD-84 that is doing a tremendous amount of work as well. And I actually did just see those C-130s from CAL FIRE that we received from the Coast Guard last year are also working to do drops in the area. But the other thing is, we do know that the wind is not as bad, but one of the things that also is a problem when the wind isn't very high is that smoke just sort of sits there and settles and it floats down into the canyon. It makes it really hard for firefighters down there to breathe and do their work. Certainly terrible air quality for people in the area. It makes it hard visually for the water drops to land accurately. So you really, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, whether or not you want a windy day or not. Of course, windy days generally are bad because they blow embers. So it is still better that we have low winds, but the visibility is a problem down there.
Well, the visibility is a problem. We are in a health warning when it comes to the air quality, and people should really take that seriously throughout the region. Even if in your area it doesn't look like this right now, you're in somewhere that is somewhat safe. The air quality is of real concern right now. You should wear a mask if you do have to go outdoors. You should limit your time outdoors. Keep your windows closed, both at home, in the car. Limit your pets' exposure to this type of smoke as well. It can be harmful, to everybody in the household that you see there. But, as we continue this firefight right now, this is the Palisades fire. It has moved. This is not a new fire. This, happening overnight, moving into this area of Brentwood and Mandeville Canyon, as we've been talking about. There are so many homes. Evacuation orders do remain in place for very large swaths of Brentwood and Encino, including Mountain Gate Country Club, the Getty Center. We know the Veterans Hospital facility is also under evacuation right now in the area. But this is impacting so many people, and we're hearing just the anxiety of people who are a little bit further in Encino and in Sherman Oaks and Tarzana. People have packed up their cars, they're ready to go. But this is something we're going to have to address as a community as well, just the anxiety of every day. It seems another either fire flaring up or the extension of these fires, as containment did go up in the Palisades fire to 11%, but as we've seen has also continued to swallow up a different swath of land. Another 1,000 acres overnight, Mark, was consumed.
Yeah, this is one of the rare instances. I can't think of an instance in the recent past where a fire has continued to grow in size in such scope while having containment numbers go up. And you kind of have to wrap your head a little bit around the way containment and acreage size work together. The numbers, when we talk about containment, that's essentially how well the fire department or the firefighting agencies that are working this fire believe they have resources around the perimeter. So when when containment goes up, that essentially means they are able to control parts of that perimeter, that the fire will not advance in a certain direction at that certain side of the fire. And this fire is so large that they have done good containment on the western end, where those flames really have sort of been stopped over there towards the Malibu side. But the flames on the eastern end and the northern end continue to march forward. And even though technically containment is going up because the western end is getting much better, the northern and eastern ends is not. So that's why we're seeing an advance of this fire, more acres being burned, while at the same time they say containment is going up. Essentially, it is good news because that fire is no longer threatening that many homes on the western end. So it's good to see containment numbers go up. But still, this very intense firefight, you can see there on the left-hand side of your screen, live pictures from SkyCal, that hillside down there completely charred. There's a few small, you can see down there, you can see it just in the distance, those hand crews that are there making sure that the fire does not advance anymore. And then, of course, on the right side of your screen here, this is sort of a group of clips that we have of these really brave pilots doing these water drops in this smoke. These Firehawks, they have to fly right through that smoke. There's that DC-10 dropping 9,000 gallons of retardant in a straight line. Really surgical strikes, able to put down lines ahead of where they believe the fire will advance. And that Phos-Chek so good at absolutely making that vegetation unburnable. There just won't be any way for fire to go through that vegetation with those lines of Phos-Chek. And really, because the winds are not that high, you're not going to see embers go over the Phos-Chek. And here we have a Coulson Aviation CH-47 Chinook filling up at one of the two reservoirs, either Stone Canyon or Encino, and then doing drops here. They do about 3,000 gallons at a time right on those lines of fire. These are based out of Van Nuys Airport, and they're on contract with LA City and LA County Fire, run by Coulson Aviation. Anybody that's lived in the San Fernando Valley for a time has seen them fly overhead. And then there are some Sikorskys like this that are also doing the work, 1,000 gallons at a time, over and over, making those loops in order to get lines on this fire.
And Mark, when you talk about how much land has been consumed by the flames, we're talking more than twice the size of Manhattan, right? Just by these two largest fires.
Unreal.
The Palisades fire and the Eaton fire. And of course, there were 6 fires at one time burning just in the past week or so. So this is a huge swath of land, an estimated $150 billion in damage. And of course, that is fluid. It could go up.
Yeah.
Thousands now homeless, more than 10,000 structures burned to the ground, and the death toll at 11. And again, those numbers expected to go up.
You know, I was looking, I was curious, Mandeville Canyon, specifically in Brentwood, just kind of the makeup of it. And I found on a real estate site, they say that about 50% of households in Mandeville Canyon are renter occupied. So you have about 50%, it sounds like, are owned, 50% renters. About 20% of the homes do have kids in the area, but they talk about on this website what a beautiful, tranquil retreat Mandeville Canyon is, with canyon views, close proximity to nature, easy access to urban conveniences. It's as we've been talking about with so many of these areas that have been impacted, just beautiful places to live, amazing communities, you know, neighbors who really are interconnected with one another, love each other. You know, in the Palisades the other day, I was talking to a gentleman, his family has been in the Palisades for 80 years. People used to know his house because of the orange groves in front. And then the 4th of July, they would, you know, people would line up on the street to see the parade from his house because it was such an incredible property. And we're going to continue to hear these stories as the losses of these homes. It's now being reported that a second house potentially burned in this area. We watched as one did go up in flames and was leveled to the ground, and firefighters just working so diligently, as we're seeing not only on the ground but especially in the air. Just an epic firefight happening right now.
And we want to point out that there will be a press conference in about an hour at 2 p.m. on the Eaton fire, which is in the Pasadena, Altadena, Sierra Madre area. We have, of course, been following the Palisades fire because it kind of unexpectedly spread almost to the edge of the 405 as communities on the east side of the 405 watch and wait, and many of them have been evacuated. But we are reminded that there were, you know, deaths in this Eaton fire on the east side of Los Angeles. So this just affecting everyone. The smoke has now reached a critical level, prompting a health emergency throughout Los Angeles County, not just by these 2 fires. So we will stand by for that. Huge rescue efforts, recovery efforts going underway right now there, and relief efforts as well. The Rose Bowl turned into a huge relief effort. And so the community really stepping up there as well. So we will get updated numbers as fire crews do have made some progress on a little bit of containment, but you wouldn't know it from looking at the Palisades fire, which we've been following as it kind of spreads. We did get a little bit of relief from the wind and a lot of communities on the east side of the 405 not expecting it last night to have spread like that. And, you know, we in Southern California don't have a fire season anymore. So the firefighters are prepared to battle a fire, but they're not prepared for 6 fires all at once when the hydrants run dry and when the reservoirs are empty, which is what we saw in the Palisades fire. And there will be a lot of questions asked about accountability in terms of those efforts.
Well, it's not only that fire season is now all year. We are in the middle of winter. This is supposed to be a time that we do get a little bit of a reprieve. If we saw this type of situation happen, let's say in August, September, October, you could wrap your mind. I mean, I don't think we're going to wrap our mind around this for a very long time, but you'd have understanding that the low humidity, the Santa Ana winds, all those things would play in. But by now, we should have so much more rainfall than we have. We've only had 0.2 of an inch of rain. You know, in our area, and you think about that, that's nothing. Then you get the Santa Ana winds that come in and dry out. And if you go back even further, the last 2 rainy seasons have been you know, we've had a deluge of rain in the last 2 rainy seasons that ended up having that vegetation come back in such a big way that's now fueling these fires because there's a lot of it, and now it's so dry. You know,
and no rain in the forecast.
And no rain in the forecast. And if there is rain in the forecast, it's very minimal. But that's also the concern that if things do change and we start seeing potentially atmospheric rivers that we did see the last 2 seasons, you're going to be concerned now, even in this area, about mudslides. You know, because even if it's impacting just the vegetation, people go, okay, you know, only a home or 2 lost in Brentwood. That's great. And the fire we were able to contain. But you have to think about these hillsides that if there becomes a large amount of rain, we've seen that happen before, that then more homes are lost and mudslides and those types of things.
Yeah, and it's hard to even look ahead at all of the ramifications of what is happening right now as we just take it 1 minute and 1 hour at a time. We want to go now to Cara Finstrom. She is live in Hastings Ranch, and this is the Eaton fire that we've been talking about. Cara, this is personal for you. I know this is your community, and you've been surveying the damage, which is just unspeakable.
Okay, we're having a little bit of an issue with Cara's microphone.
That was lost.
Able to hear you until this point.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you go? Okay, I think you have us now. Great. I was just sharing that this is the first time I've been to this side of the fire up in Hastings Ranch, and this is one of the homes completely lost here. You can see a car that was burned as well there. Just so sad to see all of this. And joining us up here is Lisa Derderian, Public Information Officer with the City of Pasadena. This is a very difficult part of this, but you have cadaver dogs that are going to be doing a grid search. This is one of the first areas they'll be doing this, not only here, but also in Altadena.
Right. Out of an abundance of caution, even if people have said that they evacuated with their family, we will still search every home. We have USAR, FEMA teams coming in. We have over 3,000 personnel that are working these fires right now.
Talk to us a little bit about the loss up here, and Sparkle can show a little bit more of this home behind us, but this is just one of them.
Yeah, there are hundreds of homes, big majority in Upper Hastings Ranch area. I mean, these homes were just celebrating the holidays for 3 weeks with thousands of cars lining these streets every night, and the next day, literally, this firestorm hit.
So surreal. We also have video of Altadena. We did send a helicopter above yesterday and took some aerial views of the streets, just block after block that are incinerated. You've brought in quite a force to handle this entire area that was really ravaged by this fire.
I mean, we're seeing fire personnel, police personnel from all over different states, counties, cities. So we're getting an outpouring of support. In addition to, we have over 2,000 city employees that are working 24/7. If they're data entry one day, they may be working in a shelter today. So it's all hands on deck, and we're getting great support from the community too, wanting to help with what they can.
We've got some video as well of some of the National Guard units. We saw them everywhere in Altadena this morning, guarding every entrance. I know you stopped someone as you were coming to talk with us who was not supposed to be here. How big of a problem is this?
Right. They're like cockroaches coming in areas, even though we have a robust security presence up here. So we have increased our police presence Other cities are coming in and assisting us. National Guard is stopping, asking for ID, proof of residency. But, we're getting scams, as we can see here. I just pulled this off of this house that's been totally demolished. I called the number that's listed here, and it just goes to voicemail and says, leave a message. So, unfortunately, this is just the beginning of those that are preying on the vulnerable, and that's pathetic. But it happens in these types of situations. We need people to thoroughly vet any correspondence, any communication they get through the city or an official source before they commit to anything, whether it be construction, cleanup crews, whatever the case may be. Please make sure it's thoroughly vetted.
And Lisa, if you'd hold this up one more time, because what's kind of concerning about this is they're pretending to be City of Los Angeles, right, which is going to throw some people off.
Right. So although, what is just 2 days after a horrific incident, people are already trying to take advantage of the situation. So we appreciate you getting the word out. Make sure it's through an official source only. We will have a local assistance center set up at our shelter. One-stop shopping, bringing in nonprofits, government agencies, those that can assist through legit channels. People have lost vital documentation. We'll be able to help there. DMV records, vehicle registration when they've lost a vehicle. Whatever the case may be, we're here to help them, and hopefully we'll have that set up in the next few days.
In the next few days. And I'm sorry, where will that be?
That will be at our shelter at the Pasadena Convention Center, so 300 East Green Street, and we'll get the word out as soon as we know the exact time and location, or exact time, sorry.
Okay. Lisa, we appreciate you and everyone else who's been working round the clock, many of them impacted by this as well and out of their homes. But shocking to see that, on this home. And again, we just saw someone else who wasn't supposed to be up here that got stopped by police. So these folks do need to, the police department is really trying to crack down on these folks that are taking advantage of people who are already in such a vulnerable position.
It's just so
sad
and
frustrating.
Frustrating to see, Cara. And I know when we were there the other day, you were taking a look at some of the damage just as a resident, as a member of that community. And we met people who were refusing to leave to guard their property because they were reporting looters early on. We don't bring that to people on the air unless we get confirmation from police or officials. But that has been going on since the very beginning.
It has, and it is a big concern. I've been evacuated, and within my block, we've started a little group text, and trying to keep each other updated because, there are concerns. You leave your home behind, you want to make sure that it is protected. What I can tell you, what was reassuring to me as someone who lives in Altadena, is that there was National Guard on every corner there, and a lot of police presence, sheriff presence going in and out. So it is very different than it was even 24, 36 hours ago. Because now that things have calmed down a little bit here, they really are not just so focused on fighting the fire and saving lives. They're more focused on this protection and what comes next. We also, at the same time, when we were in Altadena, saw countless trucks, heavy equipment, gas companies, the water companies going and putting blue X's on the cement, making sure that water was turned off to every home because they want to conserve that water, and some of it is leaking, as you can imagine. Yeah. So, which is odd to say, actually, since we had a water shortage in fighting these fires, but they're starting to address all of these things as they try to rebuild the infrastructure and fix all the things that were just destroyed by this fire.
Well, you have to imagine, too, they are going to have to get a jump on the areas where they can, because this is just of such magnitude. It's going to go on for years, really, the rebuilding process and getting everything back together. Cara, thank you for being with us, and our hearts are with you and so many others in that community. I am struck by Rob Bonta earlier today in a press conference talking about just all of these potential crimes and scams that people are reporting, things like price gouging. You have that contractor scam. You saw the scam that Cara just showed where people are posing as LA City Fire. You really are going to have to be diligent and take a pause before you jump on any of these things that are presented to you and make sure that they are in fact real.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go now from the Eaton fire to the Palisades fire, which is now approaching Brentwood, and that's where we find reporter Barry Pintar. He is in Brentwood, overlooking Mandeville Canyon, which you can't even see, just so much smoke there. And we've seen the scene evolve behind you through your hits throughout the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Rudabeh and Jamie, I'll tell you, it's incredible how much things are changing by the moment. One of the things that's changing, I just want to point out, is notice that the sun is out. I'll certainly take these off. Sorry, I forgot I had them on. But the sun is out compared to earlier today. Winds, not as strong as they were, but certainly gusting, with gusts and blows as they're blowing right now. But one thing I want to talk about, I heard you talking about 5 minutes ago about the weather and how much that plays a factor. Step over here, if you will, with me, and let me show you something down here, Damien, if we can. So, we talked about it before, but for the 2 previous years of this year, rain levels were above normal. So we have a lot of vegetation, including something like this that still has green leaves on it. However, in this last year, rain levels are below normal. So what does that mean? That means that all over this mountainside, you're seeing this kind of thing. Just brittle branches that just make fuel for fire. We've seen it time and time again today, even as we were in the neighborhood over on Mandeville Canyon Road. Just tons of this kind of brush actually go up in flames. But even worse than that, let me show you this as well. Get it untangled here in my cord. But as we walked up here, now again, I'm not placing any of these things here. I just want to make that clear. This is what we're surrounded by. This is a large piece of wood. I probably could break it if I snapped it. Well, let's try. All right, look. I mean, that easily in this tip. Okay, so let's talk about this tip. So what happens when you have these winds, and you just saw an aerial assault going by, when you have these winds and let's say that stick catches fire, this starts to lighten up. It's already lit, it's burning, and all of a sudden it's going through the air and landing somewhere else, and that's how these fires spread so quickly. The fire officials in the area have said that this Palisades fire, as early as this morning and last night, was spreading fast. That's the word they use, not the word I'm using. And it's because of those types of things. Also, they mentioned the topography. If you want to go with the geography of the canyons, it's just too easy for these guys to spread. So, Damien, if you can go down to there to that white smoke, and then to the gray smoke above it. All right, you're going to see almost a perpendicular line, a fire line. So running east to west, if you will. That's one line, but this line running kind of, let's say, southeast to southwest, diagonally up the hill. When I was live with you about 30 minutes ago, it was only about as wide as the perpendicular line. Let's say the top of the upside down T. Now, within 30 minutes, that fire line has gone from the top of that upside down T all the way up the mountain and all the way over to the other ridge, to the point where we can't even see where it went. Those types of things, this type of fuel, this dry brush, not only in this canyon, but in the backyards of these homes, is what we're facing in terms of the problem and the firefighters trying to assault this fire that is now 22,000 acres. And by the way, I'm going to unzip this. Can you see the wind? You see this? This is what we're talking about. This is not good. As I started talking to you earlier, it was probably 1/3 of that. And here we are with those winds. So again, that demonstration I did with the stick, that's on fire. That wind kicks up. That was the wind gust. It went away. Now it's back again. That ember, as we're seeing right there, gets caught in the air. All of a sudden, we have another little pop-up fire. Whether it's on this hillside, let's just get this aerial assault. Damien, it's coming over your head right now. There we go. Another aerial asset coming in to right behind those homes, as a matter of fact. Let's see if he's going to drop. Let's wait. Some of these propeller planes are doing water drops. Oh, you can see flames up there. Oh, there's a whole new plume of black smoke he's flying into right now, or certainly at least flying around. Okay, so, and by the way, part of this, these aerial assets that we're using, I want you to know that today alone, I have seen single-mast helicopters, double-mast helicopters, full-on jet planes, and of course that was a propeller plane we just saw go by. About 15 minutes ago, a jet plane came by. Damien, back down there again, I'm sorry if you don't mind, where we were talking about the T. Oh, it's not a T anymore. Again, so I'm just trying to demonstrate for you how quickly things can change, certainly not for us, but for these firefighters. Remember, we had a pretty good top of the T now. Now it almost looks like the top of that T is dripping down in curved circles and spreading lower in that canyon. This is where the problems happen. This is how we go double the acreage of the fire from yesterday today to where now we're at 22,000 acres in the Palisades fire. The biggest concern, of course, is this entire Brentwood Mandeville Canyon area, because on the other side, I don't think we could see it, guys, but there's a massive plume of smoke going up over there. So that's kind of where we are, but really, this, I can't even tell you, I don't even know what it weighs, but this is the kind of fuel that we don't need laying around. Again, I did not place it there, it was just there. Let me show you one more thing. Wow. All right, you see where that plane flew into that kind of light gray smoke? Look at it now. That is thick black smoke. Now we're seeing flames. Now we're seeing the base of that erupt into what? I don't know where it's going to go, but what I would like to point out to you as well is if you come toward, I mean, stay where you are, Damien, if you would, as you come toward us in your mind watching the TV screen, you see these homes. They are right there. You see that fire truck parked right there, ready for the assault. Here comes, there's the plane I think we saw just go by flying out of that, so he probably already did a drop. Actually, why don't we swing by this way again? Again, just so I can give you an idea of the neighborhoodness, if you will, if I could create an own word of where we are. Because I know when we're standing over there, it looks like we're in front of a dramatic canyon that's burning. And while that's true, these flames that we just looked over here next to these homes, all they have to do is jump to those homes, and then you see we have an entire additional neighborhood of hill after hill after hill where that can catch fire. Can I show you some video? Guys, go ahead and roll that video from earlier. This is tragically the first, when we're talking about this Brentwood's Mandeville fire, this is the first home that we have seen destroyed by this fire. You're looking at pictures earlier from KCAL. I'm going to say this was about 2 hours ago. Up until this point, I've been able to talk about how fortunately no structures have been affected. Tragically, we could no longer say that. Again, with the incredible work these firefighters are doing, I think you saw in just these 4 minutes, 5 minutes alone, how quickly these fires could change and spread and pop up out of nowhere, go from light gray to dark gray. But this house did not make it. It's a large mansion there right on Mandeville Road, Mandeville Canyon Road, I should say. But to our knowledge, that's the only one so far. One, of course, is too many. And tragically, if you come back live to me again, we are in the middle of another wind gust. So these winds are unpredictable in terms of where they're coming from, where they're going, even the direction they're going in. But certainly we can say they are playing a major role in what you're seeing behind me here today. Not good stuff in terms of firefighting efforts for sure. Back to you guys.
Live shot, you could tell what the conditions are that they're dealing with and how crucial it is and how critical it is when the winds shift even slightly or pick up even slightly. We've seen the situation behind you throughout the morning and afternoon. Barry, thank you so much.
You know, I was struck. You could hear the wind on his microphone, and that's concerning because that means it is a significant uptick in how it is the weather is responding. And you know, you think back to the Palisades fire. Firefighters were telling me there that the embers on Tuesday, because the winds were so strong at that point in time, were being carried as far as 2 miles away, starting new fires. So any little bit of wind is detrimental to the firefight, and as we just saw in Barry's live shot, very concerning. The good news is we're seeing so much aerial attack on this fire that hopefully they can try to get somewhat of a handle on.